In mid to late 2023, we started to see promotion for the 2024 musical film Mean Girls, a reboot of the 2004 teen comedy. Much of the discourse that followed wore many hats. When did the people who grew up with Mean Girls become moms themselves? Why character I know look different now? Why are they marketing this like it's a basic reboot and not a musical, which it is? But one particular nodule of this firestorm of internet arguing stuck in my craw. It concerned the casting of actress and singer Renee Rapp as Regina George. Prospective audiences quickly began picking apart her styling, her demeanor, her appearance, throwing her aside as totally inferior to Rachel McAdams in her origination of this now iconic teen movie role. And a lot of this was not good faith criticism. In fact, one bit of rhetoric I saw again and again was that Renee was not worthy, as she was supposedly the kind of character Regina would be bullying. I'm not gonna waste time summarizing all of Mean Girls, so let me make this as short as possible. The movie's about a girl named Caddy,
it's pronounced like Katie,
who moves to the United States from Africa, and quickly loses her good-natured ways when she falls in with a clique known as the Plastics. Regina is the leader. She is unfathomably cruel, sadistic, willing, and even eager to step on anyone in her way to get what she wants. Regina is the antagonist. She is not the main character. If you were dropped onto God's green earth for the first time today, your mind a blank slate, and you consumed recent Mean Girls content, you might be surprised to learn this, because arguably more than any other member of the film's large cast, Regina has become the queen bee in popular culture just as much as she is in the movie. She is the face of many an anonymous Twitter user. She is the source of countless gifs and handy quotes. She's frequently inserted into collages of righteous female rage on film. Every outfit she wears is inspirational and aspirational. She poses in high-definition Tumblr photo sets. She is the star of many reaction images. In a more insidious corner of the internet, she is a saint to pro-anorexia bloggers who model their mean-spirited motivational tactics after her. People dress like her, repeat her lines, make fan cams. When Ariana Grande paid homage to a number of rom-coms in her smash Thank You Next video, she was always the film's main character, Elle Woods, Torrance Shipman, Jenna Rink. But for Mean Girls, Ariana wasn't Katie, she was Regina. What attracts people to Regina George almost follows the narrative of the film. Rachel McAdams is incredibly beautiful and her performance is charismatic and really grabs you. She represents the zenith of mid-2000s beauty. Tall, thin, blonde, decorated with lip gloss and chic short skirts. In contrast, protagonist Katie Heron is almost bland. Her main characteristics are that she's nice, I guess, and her naivete makes her awkward and easy to manipulate. The other two Plastics, Gretchen and Karen, are more benevolent than Regina, but also not as easy to aspire to. Gretchen is intensely anxious and insecure, and Karen is very funny, but also a stereotypical ditz. Janice, Regina's foil, is witty, entertaining, and has plenty of triumphant moments of her own in the film, but is also distinctly alternative and lacking in Regina's glamorous airs. We almost forgot about Renee Rapp, didn't we? Renee is a Gen Z entertainer whose star rose quite a bit in the last few years. She was winning notable awards for her performance skills as early as high school. At just 18, she garnered praise from theater superstars for her skills and demeanor, and she did readings with the reputable Roundabout Theater Company. Her work paid a particularly large dividend in taking over the role of Regina in the Broadway musical adaptation of Mean Girls in June 2019, when she was still a teenager. By 2020, she landed a starring role in the series The Sex Lives of College Girls, released her debut EP in November 2022, then a studio album in summer 2023. By all accounts, she has done a stunningly large amount of excellent work in a very short space of time at a very young age. And yet, people took issue with her coming back to play Regina, a role she earned plenty of glowing praise for on Broadway. She was originally slated for a temporary run and ended up continuing the role for nearly a full year before the COVID pandemic shuttered live theater. Now, let's be fair. Plenty of people who had become fans of Renee due to her music were thrilled to see her show up in the trailer. But at the same time, these fans were now also tasked with defending her from, let's call them concerned citizens, who decided her casting was erasing the integrity of Mean Girls or something like that. The rhetoric was odd, to say the least. There were tweets calling Renee butch and masculine next to a shot of her with long layered hair, all pink clothes, decorated with feminine jewelry and a full face of makeup. It can only be assumed that these types of comments were rooted at least partially in the fact that Renee Rapp is bisexual. Worse yet, many of these reactions took issue with Renee's body, as she wasn't quite as thin as Rachel McAdams was when she first played the role. I won't delve into these reactions in depth, as I believe they were mostly said by bad faith actors, propagating a harmful attitude about body image, health, and beauty. But I will say that Renee Rapp has battled an eating disorder, partially motivated by cruel scrutiny she received over her body while playing Regina. This treatment has hampered her ability to enjoy her craft as an actress, a craft she's been particularly excellent at, and I find that devastating in a lot of ways. At the core of all these criticisms was one prevailing theme, that this was ruining Regina, and that this was some horrible sin because Regina was the main character. Right? She's the main character, right? As the marketing for the film continued to roll out, people began noticing a peculiar theme. At the center of all these posters, teasers, and promotional footage wasn't Katie, but Regina George. Even in promotional images of the entire cast, Regina stands at the center or looms over the rest of the characters. She is, once again, the Queen Bee. This is a notable departure from the now iconic original poster, where Katie stands at the forefront and Regina in the back. It's obvious that in the time since the original film, Regina has become, well, an icon. Her outfits, her expressions, her hair, her quotes, her attitude. Is this the conclusion we're meant to come away with after watching the movie, though? Probably not. The end of the film sees Regina realize that the high school she allegedly ran like a well-oiled machine is just a hotbed of resentment towards her. Everyone hates her and sees her as the villain in their lives. She's put in her place by Janice Ian, a girl whose life she ruined, and watches her peers cheer her name in appreciation when she does. And when she storms out, stopping along the way to knock Katie down a peg for old time's sake, she is hit by a bus. Boy! It is what the kids on TV tropes would call a humiliation conga, a non-stop barrage of narrative blowback for her crimes of mean girldom. It's basically as close as we can reasonably get to a text crawl saying, Regina George is a bad person. Look, come on, I don't want to get copyright struck, alright? Come on. John Williams. But it doesn't stop there. Before any of this, Katie gets secondary punishment for chasing Regina's crown and nearly succeeding. She's rejected by the guy she likes, her actual friends cut her down to size, and she comes back to her isolated start as a result of her own actions, trying to be just like Regina. And the film isn't subtle about letting you know that.
God, you know what? You are just like a clone of Regina.
Katie and Regina alike are, as blatantly as possible, framed as the bad guys for their identical actions, and the conflict is only resolved when they change and abandon their cruelty in favor of more productive ways of interacting with people. You wouldn't know that from how people talk about this movie, though! This is perhaps the eternal caveat of writing a truly great villain. We love iconic villains, and of course we do. A well-written character will always be adored in some capacity, no matter how reprehensible their actions would be in the real world, whether it's through active apologism or just recognizing that they are, in fact, well-written. There's nothing wrong with loving Regina, because she's a fun character. The issue seems to lie in the idea that loving her means her actions are justified, or that being well-written somehow actually makes her the hero? A lot of people go on about how we're losing a broader sense of media literacy, and I'll leave you to look into their commentary because, well, I only have so much time. But one outpost of this issue is that some people can't disentangle loving a character with endorsing their behavior, or them being the villain. You can love Regina and recognize she's the bad guy who did bad things. Her being a great character doesn't mean she's morally right, it just means she's a great character. But we seem to be having a bit of an issue with making characters into moral compasses. Come here, walk with me for a second, come on. There's a meme that really took off somewhere around 2022 through 2023, Sigma Bale. The meme itself is a play on the phrase Sigma male, a term pulling from the alpha-beta wolf ethology being applied to male personality traits. For those of you who don't know, and God bless you, alphas are typically portrayed as domineering, successful, and masculine, while betas are submissive and ignored by women. Sigmas are a more recent offshoot, a type of male who is ostensibly highly solitary, but still successful and well-liked. I'm not gonna get into this shit because it's not that relevant. Sigma male memes extolled the virtues of being a Sigma. It became shorthand for a cool guy on the internet pretty fast. While being a Sigma was regarded as a good thing colloquially, its mascots in memery were often anti-heroes at the very best. Arthur Fleck, Homelander, Walter White. But one character grabbed the title by the throat and emerged the king, Patrick Bateman. Now, if you've ever seen or even heard of American Psycho, no film history, or just don't live under a boulder in the woods, you're probably familiar with Christian Bale's portrayal of Bret Easton Ellis's infamous serial killer. He engages in horrific acts of violence, preying on the vulnerable, brutalizing women, children, and animals, reacting to career envy with gory violence, and killing Jared Leto with an axe. He is unfeeling, violently misogynistic, and even liable to desecrate the corpses of his victims, among a million other things that indicate he is solidly a bad guy, if not one of the all-time great bad guys. So why is he the icon of shorthand for successful and happy men? Well, a major part of Bateman's character is that he has a near-flawless veneer of success and cohesion. He's handsome, well-groomed, fit, wealthy, and confident. His cold, calculating reality lends him easily to reaction memes of steely determination. That's it. That's really all it takes.
You did it!
He has the superficial appearance of a cool and enviable person, even if it ignores everything that sits beneath the surface of his skin, his feverish amount of insecurity, the very fact that his behaviors are meant to imply he's kind of freakish in how seemingly perfect he is, because to err is human, after all. It feels like, for some people, culturally we've digested Patrick Bateman at face value and neglected basically every message the movie and novel it's based on have to offer. It's not like this for everyone, but for a meaningful amount of people, it seems to be the case. Bateman is just one manifestation of this, but the trend in seeing oneself in characters who are allegedly in control, clever, and above all, cool on the surface, but deeply troubled, often evil, and nearly always drowning in hubris underneath is nothing new. Walter White, Rick Sanchez, Tyler Durden, Alex DeLarge, Jordan Belfort, and countless others. They've all become aspirational in some context or another, have been sewn into the quilt of literally me, and memed into oblivion as a result. What I'm saying is Regina is Patrick Bateman for girls.
You did it!
It's hard to precisely pin down where the whole literally me zeitgeist, for lack of a better term, comes from exactly. It seems we're in a time where we are eager to define ourselves through consumption, be it objects or media. People seem to love aesthetics, cores, and pithy labels. While Patrick is aligned with the Sigma male vibe, Regina is often ascribed more to the female manipulator, girl blogger, etc. section of the internet. An aesthetic that I want to delve deep into later, but for now I will explain as a sort of movement defined by being unwell in some nebulous way, while also desirable and glamorous, and usually very, very feminine. Pink bows, Dior makeup, and baby doll dresses. Regina George and Patrick Bateman seem to represent two sides of the same coin, an attempt to feel powerful and understood, with one being a dramatically feminine stereotype and one being dramatically masculine. Patrick could be described as a mascot for toxic masculinity. He's chauvinistic, violent, and unfeeling. Regina, as a female manipulator representative, is catty, self-obsessed, and covets beauty and social status. Both are incredibly cruel and do everything in service of themselves, and both are straightforward villains in their own narratives. Many progressive movements have sought to decouple manhood and womanhood alike from these traits, often considered stereotypical behaviors with damaging consequences. And yet, it feels like both of them have become idols to decently big subsects of online culture. It could be said that they both fall in line with a general movement to pursue the most traditional versions of typical gender roles, though the manifestations vary. Some push the tradwife movement, some aim for a Ron Swanson-esque burly masculinity built on carnivore diets and guns. There's bimbo feminism, men going their own way, coquettes, but at the core of all of this is one thing: basing identity around a set of predetermined traits, usually tied up in gender and what your gender means. So why? There's a Rain Fisher Kwan essay I love called Standing on the Shoulders of Complex Female Characters. In a skosh less than 2 years online, it's been quoted quite a bit, and she dives deep into the methodology of crafting identity through consumption and prepackaged aesthetics, as well as using the lingua franca of trendy internet chatter to reframe your life. Take this passage where she writes about a severe depressive episode. "I'm in my hysterical 20th century woman era, I would think, unlikably. I am sleeping at erratic hours. I am sobbing. I am writing and never publishing. I am seeing shapes in my wallpaper. I am never washing my face. I am eating lavishly. I am ruining my reputation. I am making sure to eat a square of dark chocolate during my depressive episodes, so they'll sound sexy in my memoirs. Even when I am ostensibly at my lowest, I am still filtering my experiences through the eyes of a consumer. Like the great mad women before me, I am spiraling into manic depressive chaos in a way that I will inevitably romanticize regardless of its material consequences, and self-mythologizing until I can make that feel like a good thing. I'm not unwell or self-destructive or entirely unbearable. I'm in my Fleabag era. I highly recommend the full piece, as there are way too many articulate and insightful snippets for me to put into this video alone. This essay focuses particularly on women finding a sense of self through their things, through aesthetics and easy microlabels. And Regina George wannabe is certainly one of the many you could choose from. The reason for wanting to be a mean girl surely varies from person to person. Some people might want Regina's power over her social ecosystem, especially in a world where we feel increasingly isolated and the absence of third spaces is on every online cosmopolitan's tongue. Some might crave the glamour in a cultural moment where the pursuit of conventional beauty at all costs is reaching a new fever pitch through buccal fat removal, Ozempic, and expensive skincare routines. And some might just want to be nasty. But I suspect the vast majority of these people, whether they idolize Regina George or Patrick Bateman or Tyler Durden, are seeking to fill a hole that they might imagine is inside of them.
That's what she said!
Individuality is hard to process, especially when the world is unfair, and people who are profoundly lovable end up lonely. People with great beauty inside them are told they're undesirable, and people who are simply different are ostracized and othered. Looking inside yourself is hard and complicated, but calling yourself a sigma male or a female manipulator or an alpha compacts it. I'm not lonely and craving connection. I'm a sigma. Being lonely is just who I am. I'm not trying to protect myself through aggression. I'm just a queen bee girl blogger. You no longer have to navigate the nuances of being human. You can just tick boxes, eat the right foods or no foods at all, say the right things, have the right beliefs, and buy the right objects.
On Wednesdays, we wear pink.
Can I say that it's inherently wrong to try to understand yourself this way? Probably not. Life's hard enough. Why should I demand that everyone play Magic School Bus and figure themselves out at the cellular level for the sake of authenticity? But beyond the search for identity, I do think the idolization of Regina George speaks to a general, meanness in our culture. Hostility seems to be in the air lately, and we see it in a lot of ways. Surreptitiously filmed TikToks of strangers posted to humiliate them in cringe compilations. Social media main characters where every move is obsessed over and dissected for entertainment like The Truman Show. Snark communities that select a random internet pariah and do some weird reverse stan routine. Being a jerk isn't new. Mean Girls was based on a book about kids being jerks, and that movie came out 20 years ago. Bullying has probably existed since the dawn of time, when Grug wear loincloth funny at fire and didn't even notice. But in a world ruled by the internet and social media, where, possibly for the first time ever, we're nearly always on display, always performing, and always at risk at being shown to the world, being confrontational and aggressive can be armor. You can strike back, or strike first, as long as you fight back at all. The whole school was victimized by Regina, even as they hated her. Even as the mean girl, she had the upper hand. She was the villain in everyone's story, but she was in the driver's seat, and her humiliation came from becoming just like everyone else. But I don't think Regina's popularity is just one thing. It's the desire to be mean and cute at the same time. The desire to have a sense of self, the desire for protection, the desire to just be snappy and a diva. The question I think we're left with is, should we want to be Regina? Personally, I'd say no, but that's a question of moral philosophy, and that's above my pay grade. I will, however, go back to Renee Rapp. In 2023, Renee had a write-up covering her recent album release and career trajectory in the LA Times, penned by Amy Kaufman. She recounts an anecdote. One day, while performing as Regina in the Broadway version of Mean Girls, she got a DM during intermission. Renee can recite it from memory. "I just heard this mom talking to her daughters in the row in front of me, saying she was so distracted by seeing you in the show. She said she had no idea how you could be perceived as this character because you're way too big to play her." When she read this DM, she began to cry. Renee was barely out of her teenage years at the time. Weeks after this, she was even deeper in an eating disorder she had already been living with. A mother at a show about the toxicity of young girls bullying each other was speaking to her daughters about how a college-age actress not being a size 0 broke her immersion. I can't say for sure that she was the kind of person who saw something aspirational in Regina George, but I doubt the way we treat the queen bee trope didn't play a role at all. In discussing her move away from acting and toward music, Renee said that her brief time as an actress had her down to take shit and let things hurt my feelings and not speak up against them necessarily. It can only be assumed that this contributed to her shifting gears. Listen, popular Mean Girl characters can be fun. I must have seen this movie dozens of times in my life. I can repeat some of its lines down to the timing. I want my pink shirt back! There's no shame in thinking Regina is great, especially when Rachel and Renee both play her so wonderfully. And she comes from a long line of legendary queen bees, all of whom have their own devoted fan bases. Heather Chandler, Sharpay Evans, Betty Rizzo. But she doesn't exist, and neither do her actions. But their consequences seem to be coming to life anyway. There's no inherent harm in loving amazingly evil characters. And who knows, I could be overreacting about identifying with them. Maybe it's all just a little fun to use fictional characters to help us find ourselves. Maybe we don't need to think too hard about it, in this world where we have to think too much about enough as is. But maybe we'd all reap some benefits from wondering what kind of person we really want to be when we model ourselves after people who don't exist in the real world and see real costs for their actions, and what being those people really means when you don't live in a movie.